The action that should have been taken by every single Republican in Congress was to abolish the SNAP program entirely. And the fact that Republicans caved on this issue by itself makes the shutdown an abject failure. Those who demand respect never get respect. And this is really Michelle's problem, is that she's going around constantly demanding respect. We had 10,000 lifetime memberships available when we launched them a couple months ago, and now fewer than 2,000 remain. All it takes is one payment, and you will have all access for life. If you're hoping for the lifetime membership to have a special holiday sale, this is just a friendly reminder that this special deal will not go on sale. Get your membership now before it's too late. Go to dailywire.com/lifetime to sign up now. It's important to stay healthy, and one of the most essential components to your overall health is having a healthy liver. Your liver is your body's ultimate filter. It works overtime processing everything you consume while juggling 500 daily functions like energy production, digestion, and more. But when it gets overworked, you really feel it. That's where Dose for Your Liver comes in. Dose is a clinically backed supplement that comes as a daily 2-ounce shot, helps cleanse your liver and unwanted stressors that are slowing it down, and supports your daily liver function so everything can run smoothly. It also doesn't taste bitter like most supplements do, which is a big bonus. New customers can save 35% on your first month of subscription by going to dosedaily.co/Walsh or entering Walsh at checkout. That's dosedaily.co/Walsh for 35% off your first month subscription. In the end, it was air travel, of all things, that ended the longest government shutdown in United States history. That was the point of failure. We just shut down the federal government for 43 days, which runs a budget of around $6 trillion a year. And nothing of value broke during that period. Nothing at all, until the flight cancellations and delays started ramping up within the last few days. It wasn't until the air traffic controllers walked off the job that a single American had any good reason to complain about the shutdown at all. Now, as much as I'm loath to talk about federal government shutdowns, they are, in every case, a waste of time that benefits no one. And this one actually turned out to be a pretty interesting experiment. It was a stress test that exposed some key weaknesses in the conservative movement, as well as the way the federal government works. And before the next funding bill is voted on, which will take place at the end of January, apparently, it's worth shoring up some of those weaknesses as quickly as we possibly can. At a minimum, we need to answer some pretty basic questions that nobody ever really seems to talk about. And here's one that is raised by the government shutdown that I haven't heard discussed very much. It's this: why exactly is air travel a core function of the federal government? Why does air travel shut down when the government does? More specifically, why are air traffic controllers paid by the federal government at all? Now, since the 1940s or so, the federal government has employed air traffic controllers in this country. Taxpayers have been responsible for their salaries and benefits, and everyone's been okay with that arrangement. But there's no clear reason why we're doing it this way. And in fact, several countries have a very different system. For example, Canada has a nonprofit called NAV Canada in charge of their air traffic control system. They generate their own revenue. They're self-sufficient. Is that something you realized? I didn't. Did you know that when it comes to aviation, we actually have more government bloat than Canada? I mean, in terms of efficiency, we're being shown up by a country that's put the government in charge of everything, from healthcare to Facebook to euthanizing people who miss rent payments. I mean, it's embarrassing. One of the many benefits of a private system when it comes to air traffic control is that government dysfunction doesn't strand tens of thousands of travelers and shut down the entire aviation industry. The ability of the country to travel using airplanes isn't contingent on appropriations bills in Congress. Additionally, in a private system, government bureaucracy, in our case the FAA, isn't in charge of operating the same system that it's supposed to regulate. If a private entity is in charge of air traffic control, then the private entity can focus on directing traffic and upgrading their systems, and the federal government can focus on checking their work. They can supervise, and that, you could argue, is the ideal arrangement. But we don't have a privatized system for air traffic control, even though most major airlines in the U.S. want one, for a very simple reason. Air traffic control, like many other government-run industries, is designed to be as inefficient as possible. It's essentially a jobs program that saps taxpayer money while sabotaging any potential for innovation. And indeed, there hasn't been innovation in the industry for many years. Air traffic controllers are still using paper strips, which they shuffle around by hand to track flights in many control towers, even though it's obviously a less efficient and more dangerous system. And this system has persisted despite the fact that the FAA has been working on a program called Next Gen to update their air traffic control systems, including the paper strips. For more than 20 years, they've been working on this. Yes, over more than 2 decades, the FAA has supposedly been working on a $15 billion project to modernize air traffic control. And they're currently behind schedule and over budget because everything the government does is behind schedule and over budget. Their plan to get rid of the paper flight strips has been delayed until 2030. They're going to scale back the number of airports they update by 45%, and costs are over budget by 20%. A private self-funded corporation could fix all these problems basically overnight. And they could probably do it with fewer employees too. They could update the software in the control towers, take some of the workload off the controllers, and make everybody safer. But the unions wouldn't like that change for obvious reasons, and apparently no one in Washington wants to privatize air traffic control either because, as far as I can tell, no politician is even broaching the subject at the moment. Even though the government shutdown just exposed a gigantic vulnerability in the aviation industry, the possibility of reforming the industry is not even being mentioned. Instead, one after another, Republican politicians have been posting videos celebrating the end of the government shutdown because SNAP benefits are being restored. That's what they're focusing on. They're not talking about the fact that other than air traffic control, we don't appear to even need the federal government. Instead, they're thrilled that billions of dollars will continue to flow to the 40 million Americans on food stamps, even though 40 million Americans clearly don't need these handouts. It's an absurdly, comically fraudulent program, as we've discussed several times on the show. And yet, to Republicans in Congress, SNAP recipients are worth mentioning in the same breath as military service members and federal law enforcement officers. Watch.
Hoosiers Congressman Rudy Yakum here. I just walked off the House floor where I had the honor of chairing the floor for the vote to reopen the federal government. We are going to pay our troops. We're going to once again pay our federal law enforcement officials, pay the air traffic controllers, pay the TSA agents that have been working for the last month and a half with no pay. We're now going to allow people to collect SNAP benefits and WIC, things that are very important to my district and the people that I serve. It's an honor to serve you and fight for you here in Washington, D.C.
Hey everyone, just got off the House floor voting to reopen the government, ending the Democratic-led shutdown, the longest shutdown in our country's history. Proud, along with my fellow Republicans, and to their credit, a handful of Democrats, to have reopened the government, restoring funding for critical programs that families across the district in our country rely on. Most importantly, making sure that our men and women in uniform and our dedicated federal law enforcement officers and TSA agents and air traffic controllers get paid again. Also restored funding for critical programs like SNAP. All of that happening just this evening in the House of Representatives.
Yes, our brave military service members, law enforcement officers, and SNAP recipients. Let's all hail their bravery and their service to this country. Now, one of those things is not like the other. I mean, we can all agree that law enforcement officers and military service members and air traffic controllers should be paid, even if you could argue for air traffic controllers that they should be paid privately. But, they are doing something. We need those people to do those jobs. SNAP recipients, though, aren't doing anything. I mean, they're not serving the country in any way at all. They're not contributing to society in any form. They're just taking handouts that they don't even need. 75% of SNAP recipients are overweight or obese. 75%. 75, just to be clear. If you break it down, according to USDA data, 44% of SNAP recipients are obese, 28% are overweight, and only 2.5% are underweight. So at a minimum, we can cut this program by 75% and no one would really be affected. I mean, really, you could argue that there's 2.5% of SNAP recipients actually need it. in that they appear to be malnourished to some extent. And then when you boil it down to like 2.5%, then you realize that, oh, well, do we actually need this massive federal program? Or is that a small enough number of people that we could take care of them, as we've talked about, through charity and churches and food drives and soup kitchens and all the other things that we already have in place? So, but let's just say we cut 75%. We'd be eliminating a massive amount of fraud right off the bat. And if we just required SNAP recipients to step on a scale before we give them their EBT card. But really, the scale of the fraud is much greater than that, because pretty much every SNAP recipient is taking advantage of many other welfare programs too, including WIC, which for many Americans duplicates what the SNAP program does. Actually, there's one important difference. WIC only offers a list of pre-approved items like milk and bread. SNAP, on the other hand, will happily pay for your Oreo cookies and your 2 liters of Coke. And on top of that, grocery stores and so-called bodegas often defraud the SNAP program in plain sight. A few years ago, the DailyWire's Luke Rosiak spent a week standing around in various stores writing down what people bought with food stamps. Turns out that the bodegas, whose trustworthiness the SNAP program is 100% reliant on, were openly selling ski masks in August and pipes for smoking crack and cigarettes with EBT. They're just criminal one-stop shops. And in some cases, as Fox's Will Cain reports, cashiers will run EBT cards for $100 in food, but return $50 in cash to the customer instead of groceries. And then the SNAP recipient will sell the EBT card balance to somebody else. And additionally, of course, many SNAP applications are simply fraudulent and include incorrect information about income and household members and so on. For her part, the Agriculture Secretary just disclosed that 5,000 dead people are getting SNAP. And 500,000 people are getting SNAP benefits twice under the same name. And that's just the data they've been able to gather from conservative states. Left-wing states are not turning over the data at all, because obviously the fraud is even worse there. So we really have no idea about the true scale of this. All we know is that it's really, really bad. Watch.
And 20 plus others did not, and we're suing. We're in a litigation right now. But of the 29 that complied, what we have found is staggering. 500,000 people getting benefits 2 times under the same name. 5,000 dead people. 80% of the able-bodied Americans, meaning they can work, they don't have small children at home, they're not taking care of an elderly parent, they can work and they choose not to work, of course, because they're getting significant benefits from the taxpayer. So this light, Laura, that has now been shined on what is perhaps one of the most corrupt, dysfunctional programs in American history, that we are working now. Very big announcements coming next week on this. We are cracking down. We now have a plan to fix it. And we're really, really excited about doing that for the American people.
So this has been going on for many years. I mean, I think I covered this on the radio.
We found one guy in 6 states who was collecting in 6 different states under the same number. But again, if we hadn't asked for this data, and by the way, Laura, these are the red states that turn their data over. It is the blue states we're still trying to get data on. Can you imagine if this fraud is happening in the red states, what's happening in the blue states?
What are they hiding?
So, again, very important. This is only red states that are turning this over, and that's where you're going to have less fraud. So just based on that, 500,000 people are getting benefits twice. That's a lot of people already. Now add in all the blue states, and just that form of fraud alone, how many people are getting benefits twice? It's definitely more than 1 million if you get 500,000 just from the red states. 5 million? 10 million? Who knows? The Agriculture Secretary is promising some future action, which is all she can really do in her position, but that's simply not good enough. The action that should have been taken by every single Republican in Congress was to abolish the SNAP program entirely. Don't throw billions more dollars into it. Don't just dump fuel on the fire. Get rid of it. Keep the government shut down if you have to. I mean, this is outrageous. This is hurting Americans. We are being defrauded on a massive scale. You know it. Every Republican in Congress knows it. You all know it. And yet they're standing in front of the TV saying, it's so great, we got our SNAP benefits back. Totally gutless. No courage at all. You know this is wrong. You know this is what's happening. You know that it's fraud. And the fact that Republicans caved on this issue by itself makes the shutdown an abject failure for the party. Yes, Democrats didn't get the Obamacare subsidies they wanted, at least not yet. And yes, if that holds, it's going to save taxpayers money that would have gone to healthcare for illegal aliens and other loyal Democrat voters. But there's really no reason to think that this stopgap is going to hold. After all, Republican lawmakers have just demonstrated that they're willing to tolerate $100 billion in fraudulent handouts every year. Roughly 60% of those fraudulent SNAP handouts go to illegal alien households. And yet Republicans won't even condemn that fraud or mention it. Instead, they'll celebrate the payment of SNAP benefits as if it's some kind of great win for the country because, at long last, the flight delays will end. We're supposed to accept the proposition that your ability to fly on an airplane in this country, the world's greatest superpower, is contingent on the ability of tens of millions of people, including illegal aliens, to receive fraudulent benefits. The Republican Party's position is that your ability to fly on an airplane is contingent on illegal aliens getting free food, free Doritos. That's their position. Give them about 3 months and they'll be rolling out healthcare subsidies for illegal aliens as well. I mean, you might as well at this point. I mean, you're letting them defraud the SNAP program to the tune of many billions of dollars. Why does the healthcare thing even matter if you're going to let that happen? Now, at this point, it'd be shocking if you could find anyone in this country who's excited to vote for any of these Republican lawmakers in the midterms a year from now. They've refused again and again to take a principled stand on anything. From codifying the DOGE cuts in the federal government, to restricting H-1B visas, to impeaching federal judges who are flagrantly violating their oaths of office, codifying almost any of Trump's executive orders that he put in place, including, by the way, abolishing child mutilation. Still don't have a federal bill on that one. There have been some proposed. Marjorie Taylor Greene proposed one. Nothing's been passed. And now, predictably, these same Republicans have decided to waste yet another opportunity with this government shutdown. Once again, nothing will change. Air travel will continue to be dependent on the federal government. Illegal aliens will get more of your tax money. And in January, when the next funding shutdown is supposed to take place, we'll probably get rolled all over again. That's what millions of Republican voters have to look forward to. I hate to break it to you. They can look forward to being taken advantage of time and time again. The GOP majority can either address these voters directly and give them what they voted for, or they won't be the majority for much longer. Now let's get to our 5 headlines. Grand Canyon University is an affordable private Christian university based in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona. It's one of the largest universities in the country. GCU is widely praised for its culture of community and impact. They boast 369 academic programs, with over 300 of those being available online. Join a nationwide community of learners who are redefining online education through GCU's 100% online MBA program. At GCU, you can learn about ethical entrepreneurship and how you can scale your business to serve your community. In addition to federal grants and aid, GCU's online students receive nearly $161 million in institutional scholarships in 2024. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University, private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu/myoffer to see the scholarships you may qualify for. When you prioritize your health, you are investing in your ability to show up fully, think clearly, and stay resilient through whatever life throws your way. Take charge of your health with Armra Colostrum. Armra Colostrum taps into nature's original superfood packed with over 400 bioactive nutrients that strengthen your gut and boost your immune system from the inside out. Unlike probiotics that only address one piece of the puzzle, colostrum strengthens your entire gut wall system, easing bloating and supporting healthy digestion. The result is a stronger immune system, healthier metabolism, and noticeable improvements in your hair and skin. It's the secret elite athletes have relied on for years to boost performance and speed up recovery. We've worked out a special offer for my audience. Receive 30% off your first month subscription. Go to armra.com/Walsh or enter Walsh to get 30% off your first subscription order. That's ARMRA.com/Walsh. DailyWire.com/Walsh. New York Post has this headline: Climate scientists controversial claim Gulf Stream could be near collapse, predicting a new ice age. Article says a key Atlantic current could be pushed to the brink of collapse within decades, supposedly ushering a new ice age and dramatically raising sea levels, climate scientists have claimed in a controversial new study published in the journal Communications, Earth and Environment. The apocalyptic predictions came as a result of a collaboration between researchers at the Institute of Oceanology and the Chinese Academy of Sciences and the University of California, San Diego, weeks after one-time climate alarmist Bill Gates publicly downplayed the impact of temperature fluctuations on the planet. And now they are talking about an ice age. So the good news is that we all survived global warming. That's the good. So nice job, everyone. I think we all deserve a round of applause for that. Nice, hearty pat on the back. Global warming has been defeated. The earth boiled. The seas rose, drowned us all, evaporated, just as was predicted, and we survived it. In fact, we survived it so well that we didn't even notice it happening. That's how resilient we are. That's how strong and resilient we are as a species. There's been a lot of black pilling recently, but if you want a white pill, here it is. That the earth was destroyed and we are so resilient, we didn't even know it happened. That's the power of positive thinking. And real mind over matter type of thing, I guess. But the bad news, so that's the good news. Bad news is we're back to the ice age. Good news is we survived global warming. Bad news is, well, now we all have to freeze to death instead. But the other good news is that they predicted an ice age back in like the 70s, and we all survived that. So we already froze to death, and then we boiled and burned alive, and we're fine. And now we're going to freeze again. So, I think we can do it. So here we are. They've officially pivoted back to the ice age, which we knew they would, because all of the global warming predictions failed. I mean, all of them. You could go down the list. There are plenty of lists that have been compiled by various people of these failed predictions. And obviously there are people like AOC and Greta Thunberg who told us that we should be underwater by now. They said we all be basically global destruction in 10 years, and they said that more than 10 years ago. And as I said, you could go down the list. Here's just one example. I found this article in The Guardian from 21 years ago. I think I found this on one of the lists that someone compiled of, here are all the failed predictions, and it's like dozens and dozens. You can't even go through the whole list. It would take too long. But there's a link to this article. This is from 21 years ago. This is 2004. And as a side note, it always kind of blows my mind that you can pull up articles from 2 decades ago. I mean, this article on this website is almost twice as old as my oldest child, which feels weird. But anyway, so listen to this from 2004. Climate change over the next 20 years could result in a global catastrophe costing millions of lives in wars and natural disasters. A secret report, suppressed by U.S. defense chiefs and obtained by The Observer, warns that major European cities will be sunk beneath rising seas as Britain is plunged into a Siberian climate by 2020. Nuclear conflict, mega droughts, famine, and widespread rioting will erupt across the world. The document predicts the abrupt climate change could bring the planet to the edge of anarchy as countries develop a nuclear threat to defend and secure dwindling food, water, and energy supplies. The threat to global stability vastly eclipses that of terrorism, says the few experts privy to its contents. Pentagon analysis said disruption and conflict will be endemic features of life. Once again, warfare would define human life. And it gets better in this paragraph. The findings will prove humiliating to the Bush administration, which has repeatedly denied that climate change even exists. Experts said that they will also make unsettling reading for a president who has insisted national defense is a priority. Yes, how humiliating for George Bush. I mean, there is a lot for George Bush to be humiliated by, obviously. His tenure was disastrous on many levels. But this is not on this. This is one thing he got right. This is a Pentagon analysis saying major cities sunk beneath the seas like Atlantis by the year 2020. Britain turned into Siberia global anarchy, starvation, the apocalypse by 2020. Now, ironically enough, they predicted major rioting in 2020, and that did happen, but it had nothing to do with climate change. That had a lot more to do with the race hustling that began really in earnest with Barack Obama, who would be elected 4 years after this report came out. So they got that one right by accident, but all the other stuff, they didn't. And of course, there is no reckoning with any of this. There's no acknowledgement that they got it wrong. Nothing like that is happening. They just simply move on to the next thing. Because there must always be some looming Armageddon, some fast approaching catastrophe. There always has to be something like that. This is what they use to manipulate us, and there always has to be. Now, I don't think they're gonna try to stick with the climate stuff, the climate alarmism, and they're gonna try to shift back to the ice age. I don't think it's gonna take. I don't think that this is gonna work. So they're probably going to need to do something else. They're going to need to find some other form of planetary catastrophe to scare us all with. I don't know what it's going to be, but I don't think it'll be this. I don't think this is going to work. All right, we've played several clips of Michelle Obama on her book tour as she hawks her fashion book, her book of pictures of herself. What was it called? The Look. The book is called The Look. The book is called Look at Me, the book. And we probably don't need to play any more clips of it. We've really never needed to play any clips, but we did because they're funny. And so is this one. So here it is. Watch.
And we have to start educating people about all kinds of beauty.
Yes.
And our beauty is so powerful and so unique. That it is worthy of the conversation, and it's worthy of demanding the respect that we're owed for who we are and what we offer to the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so that was from Michelle Obama's podcast, I guess, with Michelle Obama and Craig Robinson. The podcast is called IMO. I never knew what her podcast was called. Nobody listens to it, but IMO, in my opinion. So they chose the least imaginative title for a podcast. I can't think of a less imaginative or interesting title for a podcast than "In My Opinion." No, that's not imaginative. Like if your name is Matt Walsh and your show's title is The Matt Walsh Show. Now that is innovation, okay? So anyway, she says that Black female beauty is owed respect and people need to be educated about it. And I have to say that kind of resonated with me. I've always said this. I've always said that anyone who doesn't find me attractive, it's because they lack education. That's always been my thing. It's not because I'm a hideous ogre. It's because they're just not educated enough. If you think that I'm not an attractive person, if you don't realize that I'm incredibly handsome, it's because you lack education, okay? You are ignorant. You need to educate yourself. Just the other day, somebody came up to me and said, you're ugly. And I said, wow, sounds like you're pretty uneducated. Hey, go read a book, you Philistine. Go back to school, take a class on why I'm actually handsome. And they didn't know what to say. They just walked away. Devastating comeback. So we've already talked about how Michelle Obama, lives the world's most comfortable and privileged life and yet still isn't happy. She's on camera every day complaining. I find it in some ways like endlessly fascinating just from a psychological perspective. But we don't need to go over that point again. I will note just one other thing that she said that stuck out to me. She said that Black women because she's talking about how Black women are beautiful. This is what she always talks about. This is a constant theme, is her trying to convince the world that she is beautiful. She talks about her own beauty more than anyone I've ever seen. And she says that Black women are worthy of demanding the respect that we're owed for who we are and what we offer to the world. What is it that you offer to the world exactly, Michelle? What are you offering? I didn't quite get that. The look? You're offering your look? Your stunning outfits? Is that what you're offering? And I will say, this is a lesson for all of us, that Michelle is an instructive example, I think, of this, which is that those who demand respect never get respect. And this is really Michelle's problem, is that she's got a lot of problems. This is one of them. She's going around constantly demanding respect everywhere she goes, ever since she's been on the public stage. Always goes back to the two things she talks about, that she's beautiful, and we're all supposed to maintain a polite, straight face while she says that, and that she deserves respect. She's demanding respect. You will respect me. But this is exactly her problem, because that just makes people respect you less. It's a life lesson for all of us. Contrary to what Michelle says, do not demand respect. You should not be demanding respect. That's the last thing you should. If you want to be respected, the last thing you should do is demand it. Okay, you shouldn't be demanding respect. You should be commanding respect. Command, don't demand. Demanding respect is weak, because it means you walk into a room, you're on the defense, you're insisting from a position of weakness. You're saying, hey, everybody, respect me. I deserve it. I'm a beautiful black woman and I deserve it. You should respect me. It's pitiful, it's weak, it's needy, and nobody respects that. But commanding respect means you walk into a room and you don't need to make any demands. You don't need to ask for or insist on respect. You command it through the way that you carry yourself, through the way that you conduct yourself, your general sort of presence, your aura. That's commanding respect. Be a competent, authoritative, self-assured, intelligent, honest person, and you will command respect. This is crucially important with parenting also, not to get too sidetracked, but this is a problem that many parents face. When you see these parents that have lost total control over their kids, and they're in the supermarket or wherever, they're at a restaurant, they're annoying everybody, kids out of control, and they're like begging their child to behave, and a lot of parents, they fluctuate wildly between begging, bribing, making promises, negotiating, and then also demanding, threatening. Like, there's just all over the place. They've lost total control of themselves, and so their child's out of control. Your child's out of control because you're out of control. Okay, and ultimately for kids, when they're freaking out, especially at a young age, a lot of this is they're confused, they don't really know what's going on, and then they look to you and you're projecting confusion and helplessness, and you're demanding respect, you're not commanding it. The reason that if your kids don't listen to you or respect you, it's that you're making demands all the time. But demanding is not commanding. Which is one of the reasons why, you see these kids that are really out of control, and you often think, oh, well, they must have really lenient parents. They must have these really lenient, must be a gentle parenting thing. They must have parents that never raise their voice or anything like that. And sometimes that's the case, because the gentle parenting thing is also bad. But very often that's not the case. I mean, if you could be in the home where these kids live, a lot of times there's a lot of yelling and screaming and a lot of punishing and threatening that does go on. But the kid's out of control because this is a parent who has no control over himself or herself. A parent who doesn't command respect because they're always demanding it. They're always having to explain. I mean, if you're constantly having to explain to your kid why they should respect you and your rules, then you're already losing. You shouldn't have to explain it. You should be commanding respect with the way you carry yourself in your home. Anyway, has almost nothing to do with Michelle Obama, but needed to be said anyway. So we followed this story out of Gold's Gym. Tish Hyman confronted a man who was in the women's locker room. Turns out the man allegedly beat his ex-wife, took her name, and then assumed her identity, essentially, tried to become a woman, quote unquote, now hangs out in women's locker rooms pretending to be a woman. Well, Tish went to, I guess this is some kind of town hall, and or a podcast interview or something like that. But California State Senator Scott Wiener, who is one of the creepiest weirdos in politics at any level, the guy just makes your skin crawl when you look at him. And then when he opens his mouth or you listen to his policy proposals, it's even worse. But she showed up to talk to him, confront him, and here's how that went.
As a lesbian woman who was attacked in the women's locker room at Gold's Gym this week by a self-identifying trans woman with a documented history of domestic violence, I'm deeply concerned about women's safety in female-only spaces. What would you say to women who are seeking assurance that their safety will be protected from men who, by California law, can self-ID as women in women-only spaces, sir? Please tell me.
Yeah. So we want, everyone to be safe, and we also know that we have trans people, both men and women, who are men and women, and so so if you're trans women are women.
Senator, you've done great things with the bills you've passed with the housing. I've read a lot of your bills, and like you said, there are bills that need to be opened up, and I'm telling you now, millions of women across America are being harassed and sexually assaulted in locker rooms. I'm a lesbian black woman. I'm not transphobic. I'm not homophobic. And I do respect a lot of the things you've done. But I do see a lot of these bills that you've passed that are dangerous for women and young children. And I understand that you're trying to be on a level playing field. And I'm here to represent my community because I hear a lot of things about my community in these bills. And I'm telling you as a woman, first and foremost, that this is dangerous and we need your help because you're in the office, you're going to go in the Polisky spot. I want to support you. I have millions of people behind me watching this right now, and we want to know, are you going to protect women? Not trans women, women. Trans women are different things. Women. Listen, we need to protect women's safety. I was assaulted. Women are women. I was assaulted. No, they are not. They are men. I was assaulted by men. He broke his wife's jaw so bad she needed reconstructive surgery. I'm a lesbian. I'm not transphobic and I'm black. So if there's another black woman in here who wants to tell me how they feel, please join in. But all of you are not. And I don't know who you are, what you are, but I'm a lesbian, and I'm telling you right now, men are harassing women in the locker room.
I think we need to protect the safety of all women, and that obviously that's incredibly important. And I also know that trans women are also brutalized in this country.
Okay, so then she ends up leaving as the clip continues, and she kind of storms out, frustrated. Understandably so. Creepy Scott Wiener just stutters and stammers about how trans women are women and trans women are brutalized in this country, which isn't true, of course. Trans women, quote unquote, aka men dressed as women, are not under attack. And if they were, they would not be casually strolling into locker rooms like that. So it's very much like when you see a body cam of a black guy going out of his way to be confrontational with the cops, and then they tell us that, well, he was acting that way because black people are scared of the cops. And of course, the response is always, well, if they're scared, then they'd be acting exactly the opposite of this. Okay, this is someone acting like they have no fear of any consequences at all. So, and it's the same with these trans-identified males that we're told that they're in fear, they're under attack, and yet the way that they conduct themselves is not like someone who is in fear of an anti-trans genocide, but like someone who's walking around and feels untouchable. Because for a long time they have been. And in any case, Wiener sticks to the talking points, which is what you would expect. And Tish has acted commendably in fighting back against this madness, which I appreciate. I don't want to Monday morning quarterback or nitpick. I will say that we've played a few clips of this woman on the show, and she continually reverts back to this point about how she's a black woman and a lesbian. She's brought it up in every clip we've played, that she's a black woman and a lesbian. The problem is, well, first of all, you don't need to say the I'm a black woman part of it, because we can see that. You also don't need to say that you're a lesbian. And if I was advising her, I'd tell her, the problem is that, as we've reviewed on the show, as a black lesbian, you are below trans people on the left-wing victim hierarchy. So using your own victim group status is not going to work. I mean, in this argument, you might as well be a dastardly straight white male, God forbid, because you are below trans on the hierarchy. So normally on the left, and this is why there's this confusion, this is why she thinks that this, especially when she's talking to a room full of leftists in California at some Scott Wiener event, right? You don't get more left wing than that. And so in some ways it's understandable. She thinks that, well, yeah, I mean, with these people, there's mostly a bunch of white liberals, and I'm a black lesbian. I mean, normally I could win any argument with these people just by pointing that out. If I say 2 + 2 = 5 and they go, no, it doesn't, I can say, well, I'm a black lesbian and I think it does. And they'll say, well, okay, maybe it does. If that's your truth. So she knows that that's usually the way to win arguments among leftists, but not this one. You're not going to win this one that way because of the way the victim hierarchy works. And you are below trans-identified people, including trans-identified white males on the victim hierarchy. This, like we've talked, you can go back, I did a whole video on it. Very important. The calculus here is very, very complicated, but it's all, I spell it all out. So maybe, Tish, I'd recommend going to check that out. But at the very bottom of the pyramid, of course, you have the white males. But the interesting thing with the way the pyramid works is that white males there's a cheat code where they can they could go from the bottom all the way to the top if they just put on a wig and say, I'm a woman. That's the only way. And the only way they'll get up there, only way to leapfrog it is that way. And so I think this is confusing for certain people who are generally on the left who still haven't figured this out. Now, will there be a reshuffling of the victim hierarchy as trans falls out of favor more and more? And there's less sort of political purchase in defending quote unquote trans rights? Will there be a reshuffling? Will black women be able to reclaim their top spot on the victim hierarchy on the left? Well, that'll be interesting. We'll see that unfold over the next couple of years, but I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. Okay, finally, the Daily Mail reports, here's a headline. Target makes disturbing demand of staff in a bid to boost flagging sales. Another reason to shop elsewhere. Disturbing demands. That sounds scary, doesn't it? If you shop at Target at all, you probably want to know as a customer that they're making disturbing demands of their employees. I don't like that. If I was shopping at a place, I don't really shop at Target. But if I did, I wouldn't want to know. I wouldn't want to shop there and approve of that. You're making disturbing demands. So let's read on. Let's find out what these disturbing demands are. I mean, the mind, you conjure all kinds of possibilities of what these demands could be. Well, reading on, 'tis the season to be jolly, especially if you work at Target. The retailer wants employees to keep their spirits bright and their smiles tighter as the holiday rush hits full speed. Indeed, Target has imposed new rules on employees in an effort to spark some festive cheer up and down the superstore's aisles. Employees were told that if a shopper comes within 10 feet of them, they must smile. If they come closer within 4 feet, employees must ask whether they need help or how their day is going. Heading into the holiday, we're making adjustments and implementing new ways to increase connection during the most important time of year, Chief Stores Officer Adrienne Costanzo told Bloomberg. The guidance is part of Target's new initiative, internally dubbed the 10-4 program, to make its stores more welcoming. While Target has always encouraged workers to be outgoing and kind, it has never mandated this before. Response to the news online has been critical. Nothing boosts morale like a mandatory happiness. Next update, employees must giggle when scanning items. Another wrote, they did just fire a ton of employees and now they want them to smile about it. One ex-user said it's a recession indicator. And another said, this just gives me another reason to shop elsewhere. And then someone else said it was disturbing. So this is what people are upset about. So the disturbing demand is that the employees must be nice to the customers. That's the disturbing demand. The disturbing demand is that they smile and say hi to the customers who come in the door. So disturbing. I mean, that is so you mean if I'm an employee of Target, you want me to do the bare minimum of my job? You want me to do the absolute bare minimum? You want me to do it's like not even doing anything. You want the smallest possible effort from me? You mean you want me to refrain from making the customers feel actively unwelcome when they walk into the store? That's what you want? Oh, that's disturbing. I'm disturbed by that. Bare minimum? That's so disturbing. No one's ever asked me to do anything at all before. You're saying that there's like the slightest obligation at all that comes with this job? So disturbing. You know, to state the obvious, this should already be the policy. It used to be back when I worked customer service jobs 20 years ago or so ago. The policy everywhere was that you had to greet customers and ask them if they need any help. And if you didn't do that, or if you didn't smile, and as you can imagine, for me, I didn't take to this very well, but you were corrected because this was the job. And now I go into these places, I walk around, and any of these like retail places, not greeted by any employees. Nobody asks if you need help finding anything. Right? Like you could go into the average Target, Walmart, any of these places, and you could walk around for like an hour, and there will be no communication or acknowledgement from any employee at all. Except maybe they sneer at you like they don't even want you there. Now, there are caveats. First of all, I know when I say this, you might say, well, you're Matt Walsh, and they're not nice to you because you're Matt Walsh and they hate you. Fair enough. That might be the case sometimes, but I think this is the general experience of everyone, even the people who are not Matt Walsh, which is frankly most people. Most people on Earth actually are not Matt Walsh. So I think this is like a general experience. I think most people have experienced this. We've talked about before the decline of customer service. It's a very real thing. Everyone has noticed it. Customer service is awful almost everywhere except for Chick-fil-A. Anywhere outside of that, and even some of the Chick-fil-A's now, I got to say, it's even there, they're like teetering a bit. But everywhere else you go, the customer service is god awful. It's not just that there's no service, it's that they actually make you feel bad for being there. You feel guilty for even walking in the door. And, but yeah, there is that. And also, I will also admit that if I was walking around the store and I did need help finding something, which I often do, and someone did ask me, I would still say, no, I'm good. And then I would walk around and wander aimlessly for another 45 minutes. But still, I think that this should be standard, and it used to be. And now it's considered a burden, disturbing. So there is certainly a major decline in the quality of work that's done in this country, and you can see it even in these low-level customer service jobs, especially in those jobs. You see it everywhere. We've had occasion to hire contractors many times over the past few years for different projects, and we found some good ones, but also a lot of just shockingly bad and shoddy work. So it's all over the place. So to bring it back to what we talked about yesterday, when Trump talks about the fact that we don't have all of the kind of talented, skilled people we need, what he's pointing to is not entirely wrong. And we all know that. We all talk about that. Just when you go around in the country, it feels like the work being done is really bad a lot of the times. So we all notice that. There's been a collapse of standards in this country. There's no doubt about it. And it's so bad now that when you hire someone to work customer service and you expect them to smile, it's considered some kind of onerous demand upon them. But where Trump is wrong is in the prescription. So we're not going to solve the problem by bringing in foreigners with H-1Bs. We're not going to solve the problem with mass migration. We're not going to solve the problem with illegal immigration. In fact, that's part of what's causing the problem with the collapse of standards, particularly when it comes to contractors and that sort of thing. No, you need to train up our own people. As I said, raise the standards in this country among our own people. and for our own people. Okay, that's how you solve it. You don't solve it by bringing in cheap labor that's oftentimes even worse in every respect than what we already have here. All right, let's get to the comment section.
If you're a man, it's required that you grow a beard. Hey, we're the sweet baby gang.
You guys have heard me talk about the bearskin hoodie. Well, the smart people are locking in their winter gear now because this is hands down the best time to prep for the coming winter. Don't wait any longer than you already have. Bearskin is running a 60% off deal right now, but only if you get your hoodie early. This hoodie, which I am wearing right now, in fact, is built like a tank. Micro fleece, 10 pockets with a clean, rugged fit that looks awesome. I think it looks great, and which is hard to do. It's hard to make something look good on me, but somehow they pull it off. And also, it's very comfortable, and it's got utility. I mean, it's practical as well. So it combines all the things you want: style, practicality, and comfort. Plus, it zips right into the heavy storm rain jacket to become 100% waterproof when you need it. Now, as you can see, I'm, as I said, wearing my bearskin hoodie right now. And if you want to get your own bearskin hoodie, I mean, if you're inspired by how dashingly handsome I look in this, then do yourself a favor. Text the word Matt to 36912 to lock in your 60% off. Again, text Matt to 36912. You get a link sent straight to your phone so you can check it out later if you're busy right now, but you want to get on this right away. You get free U.S. shipping, fast delivery, and you've locked in your winter gear already, and that is a win-win. So don't wait till you're freezing to realize that your hoodie sucks. You need to get a new one. Get a bearskin right now while it's 60% off. Text Matt to 36912. Do it now. Our new show, Friendly Fire, returns Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern on DailyWire Plus. Join Ben Shapiro, Michael Knowles, Andrew Klavan, and me as we do best: debate, discuss, and disagree on the biggest stories in politics and culture. Plus, we are world premiering the first official trailer for the Pendragon cycle, Rise of the Merlin. Don't miss it. Friendly Fire will only be on DailyWire Plus on Wednesday, November 19th at 7 p.m. Eastern. Okay, a few comments as we do our comment section on a Thursday, as per tradition, very new tradition. Mark Quinnose says, Matt, as far as the 50-year mortgage options is concerned, here are my counterpoints. One, you're using a hypothetical home buyer who can't afford the house and will default on their payment. That's true even with a 30-year mortgage. The difference is a higher monthly payment makes the buyer more likely to default than a lower monthly payment. Two, the equity will be lower after the same number of payments initially. That's true. But people who rent and never own have an equity of $0 after any number of years. Three, the 50-year mortgage is an option. It's not mandatory. People can choose. Four, buyers need to be responsible. If you buy a home, you need to be responsible and make the payments. If you can't afford and default on it, that would have also happened on a 30-year mortgage. Okay, I don't really object to any of your points. I mean, I think they're all valid. But to me, if anything, you've just made an argument against 30-year mortgages, not in favor of 50-year mortgages. And I'm not saying we should get rid of 30-year mortgages. I'm just saying that those are all problems that you find with 30-year mortgages. You're correct. And I don't think that we solve that problem by making it worse. I don't think that we solve that problem by doing something that's going to have all those problems, but to a much worse degree. And as far as it being an option, not mandatory, well, sure, of course. But when you give home buyers an option that allows them to buy more house than they can actually afford, a huge number of them will take that option, as we have seen. We've already seen this movie, and it doesn't end well. And so that's how I would flip it around. What problems do you have with a 30-year mortgage that would be solved or addressed by offering a 50-year? Like, what problems are there with the current system that would be made better by offering a 50-year mortgage? And kind of as you just laid out, I don't think that there are any. Joshua says, this America-only stance by Matt, how does that not entirely dissolve his advocacy for the persecuted white farmers in South Africa and our Christians in Nigeria? They're not Americans, so I'm confused, or Matt Walsh should really go back to the drawing board. As for these both held ideas can be compatible with each other, or reform or drop one of these premises and goals. Again, fair point. But here's what I'll say. And I look at this, especially the white farmers issue. So let's take that, the refugees that I was in favor of taking in the white farmers. We talked about that. However, I also say America first, America only, American chauvinist, unapologetically. Well, how do I square that circle? Well, I look at it just as I look at hate crime laws. To me, it's similar. I don't think that hate crime laws should exist, but they do. And since they do, I think they should be applied equally, which means that if a white guy is assaulted or killed by a black guy, there should be a hate crime investigation. And very often there should be a hate crime charge and conviction. Even though I don't think the hate crime category should exist. So you could accuse me of hypocrisy. I'm saying on one breath, I say hate crime category should exist. The next breath, an incident like this happens, say what happened in Cincinnati, many examples, and I'll say there should be hate crime charges. Is that hypocrisy? No. Because my argument is we should get rid of this, but we haven't. It exists. And as long as it does, right, as long as this law exists, there needs to be equality under it. So I'd rather get rid of the law, but while it's there, there needs to be equality under that law. So the fact that I'm critical of the system entirely does not mean that I have to tolerate or accept the unfairness and injustice within that system. So with the white South Africans, this country takes in millions of refugees and asylum seekers all the time. We've been doing this for many years. And since we do that, yes, absolutely, these white victims of persecution should be brought in. And not only should they be brought in, since we have this system, but they should be at the front of the line. Because we played the footage. When they came in, they were waving their American flags. They were happy and grateful to be here. They wanted to fit in and assimilate with our culture. And you usually don't have that with these refugees and quote unquote asylum seekers. And because you had that with them, not only should we let them in, but they should be at the front of the line. Now, if we suddenly woke up in some kind of bizarro world where we've closed the door and we're not accepting any refugees or asylum seekers anymore, then okay. I mean, would I say in that case that the South Africans should be an exception? Probably not. But as long as this is the policy, as long as we have the gate open, then they should be allowed in. So that's kind of how I look at it. Last one says, new technology creates new opportunities. Matt was the guy 100 years ago trying to ban cars. Well, I've addressed this argument for AI so many times, I think. And it's not, but it comes every time we talk about AI, this comes up because this is really seems to be one of the only arguments in favor of it. But one of the only arguments against regulating and passing laws to contain this thing as best we can. One of the only arguments against it is exactly this. But it's not really an argument. It's just an assertion, basically, that every technological advancement is the same. And if one turned out to be okay, then they all will. But that's not the case. And by the way, I always feel necessary to point out when people do this thing, oh, so you're against AI. Well, you would have said the same thing about automobiles 100 years ago. Well, again, these are two different things. They're not the same. So just because you object to one doesn't mean that you would have to object to the other. Not all technology is the same. Some technological advancements are very good. Some are bad, though. I mean, there can be technological advancements that are bad. I think that AI is bad for the most part in most applications. And I do think that there are people who their view is that basically a technological advancement can never be bad. The simple fact that it is an advancement makes it good. I mean, that's the view that a lot of people really do have, and I find that to be absurd. But anyway, when you bring up cars, look, since you brought it up, many of the dire warnings about automobiles turned out to be true. Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have cars. I'm not saying cars are a net negative. I don't think they are. I'm just saying that if you look back through history and you just laugh off all of the critiques lobbed against new technology through history, then you're totally missing the point. You're completely missing the opportunity to learn something. Okay, that should not be the lesson you take from it. If you look at a technology that's not new to us anymore, but it was at some point, as all technology was, and you go back and look at, okay, what were, back when there was a debate about this technology, that's interesting to do. I mean, any technology that is normal to us now, at some point it was new, and when it was new, there would have been a debate about it. There would have been people who said, no, this is bad, we shouldn't do this. And it can be very instructive to go back and look at that, look at those arguments. But I think people like you, the person left a comment, it's like it's totally thoughtless. You're not putting any thought into it. You're just assuming that, well, that turned out okay, so whatever they argue, they must have been a bunch of morons. No, about automobiles, what were the arguments against automobiles if you go back a century? Well, there were two big ones. The first is that a lot of people warned that people would die, that there would be a lot of accidents. As we move to these mechanical, these machines instead of horse and buggy and all that, there'd be a lot more accidents, a lot more people would die. That was true. Millions have died. The cost of having automobiles is that millions of people have died. What's the total number of people who have died in car accidents globally since the car was invented? I don't know. Many, many, many millions have died. And so that turned out to be true. And also there were people who warned that cars would lead, I think people that were even more insightful and more prescient in their thinking, they said that cars would lead to the decline of local communities and even the family because people would move farther and farther away from each other because they'd have the ability to do so. Turns out that was true too. Now, is it worth the benefit? Even with those are big costs actually of the automobile. Was it worth the benefit? I would say that it is. And anyway, it's a moot point now. I mean, we're not going to get rid of cars. Cars are here. So it's an interesting academic discussion, but they're here now, and there's nothing you can do about it. AI is different though, right? AI is very new. It is already here, but it's new and it's developing. We're in the infancy of this thing. And so it's not all a foregone conclusion. AI just like taking over the world is not a foregone conclusion. It hasn't happened yet. It will happen. And what I'm arguing is that will be very bad for people. I think it'll be destructive to human life on a scale that we can't even fathom. That's really what I believe. And so we can put things in place right now to try to control, contain, regulate this thing. And we should at least try. So that's one big difference between looking at cars and looking at AI. One of the big differences now is that, okay, the time to have the debate about automobiles was 100 years ago. We're way past that. But we're at that point now for AI. And then the other big difference, as I've explained many times, is that AI, it is just different in kind from any other kind of technology that has ever existed. This really is a different kind of thing. And yes, you could say that, well, they always say that about new technology. Okay, maybe there are people always saying that. I get it. But sometimes the things that people always say turn out to be true. And in this case, it's true. In this case, it's true. This thing is different from any other kind of technology. And the reason is that it completely removes the human element. I would argue that every other piece of technology that has ever been invented up till this point has always been a new, allegedly improved tool for people to use to like increase efficiency and supposedly make their lives easier and better. That's all the new technology up until now. Unless we're talking about military technology, which is designed to kill people efficiently. So that was it. But this is not a tool. That's the point. This is like, this is not a new and improved hammer. This is a hammer that will build the entire house. This is a hammer you don't even need to put your hand on. It'll build the whole house, come up with the blueprints. It will come up with the blueprints, design the house, and build it for you. There's literally nothing for you to do. You don't even need to tell it what kind of house you want. It will do everything. So that's AI. Takes the human being out of it completely. And I would argue that taking human beings out of everything at this scale and this quickly is a disaster on so many levels. So, and that's a conversation that we need to really start having. You know, it can't just be me and like 5 other people. It's got to be, we got to really start having this conversation. But that's the end of the conversation for today. That'll do it for the show today and this week. Have a great weekend. Talk to you on Monday. Godspeed.
President Trump defends more immigration. Michelle Obama educates us on her black beauty. And Scott Wiener wants domestic violence victims to suck it up and get naked in front of trans women. Check it out on The Michael Knowles Show.
Matt Walsh Show is a Daily Wire production. Copyright Daily Wire 2025.